fail anyway, smiled Rich Dad. Look, you're in the middle of a learning process. The process requires that you make many mistakes and learn from those mistakes. The faster you make mistakes, the faster you get through the process and get to the other side. Or you can quit. Then the process spits you out. Rich Dad was saying the same thing Thomas Edison had said about failing 1,000 times before inventing the electric light bulb. Rich Dad was saying the same thing my driving instructor was saying to me when I was learning how to drive a race car at high speed. They were saying that if I wanted to get through the process faster, I had to be willing to fail faster. Failing at failing faster. For a few weeks, I took Rich Dad's advice to heart and did my best to make more cold calls. I knocked on door after door at high speed. The problem was, I was still not getting in front of the person I needed to talk to. Their secretaries were very skilled at keeping pesky salespeople like me away from their bosses. Now that I was failing at failing faster, I called Rich Dad again and asked for advice. I called him because I realized I was even failing at failing. Again, he laughed and said, "Keep your daytime job and find a sales job at night, but find a sales job that will let you fail faster." Naturally, I whined and complained. I didn't want to work at night. I was single, and this was Hawaii. I wanted to be at the Waikiki nightclubs. I did not want to be selling at night. After listening to me moan and complain, Rich Dad simply asked, "How badly do you want to be an entrepreneur?" The number one skill of an entrepreneur is their ability to sell. If you do not get through this part of the process, you'll be better off as an employee. It's your life. It's your future. It's your choice. You can fail now, or you can fail later. It was an old lesson. I had listened to the same lesson before. The subject changed. This time, it was the subject of sales. But the lesson was always the same. The lesson was that if I wanted to succeed, I had to be willing to fail. With my own dad's business failure still fresh in my mind, I knew this lesson about sales was especially important. I knew that if I wanted to become an entrepreneur in the B quadrant, I had to learn to sell. But I hated knocking on doors. I dreaded it, day in and day out. One day, after hearing 4 replies of, "We're not interested," and one, "If you do not get out of my office, I'll call the cops," I hit the depths of depression. I went home rather than back to the office. Sitting in my little apartment in Waikiki, I contemplated quitting. I even considered going back to school and getting my law degree. But I lay down, took a couple of aspirin, and that idea soon passed. It was time to fail faster in a new way. Working for free. Rather than find a job at night, I remembered Rich Dad's advice that it was easier to find work if you were willing to work for free. I found a charity that needed people to dial for dollars at night. Leaving my job at Xerox, I would go uptown and dial for dollars from 7 to 9:30 p.m. For 2.5 hours, I failed as fast as I could over the phone. Instead of making only 3 to 7 sales calls during the day, I was sometimes making over 20 sales calls in 2.5 hours at night. My rejection rate and failure rate went up. But curiously, as my failure rate went up, so did my success in raising money. The more calls I made, the better I became at handling the rejections. I learned what worked with the calls that succeeded and started changing my pitch based on the rejections and the successes. The faster I failed at night for charity, the more I succeeded at Xerox by day. Soon, I was climbing up the list of salespeople rather than being at the bottom of the list. Even though I was not being paid at night, my income by day was going up. Working those extra hours even had an impact on my fun hours. The higher the number of rejections at the charity, the more fun I had in the nightclubs of Waikiki. Suddenly, I was not as afraid to talk to the pretty women in the clubs. I was less awkward, less terrified about being rejected. Soon, I was even becoming cool and popular, and women were actually hanging around me. After 4 years at an all-male military school and then years in the Marine Corps, being around so many pretty women was quite a treat. It was a lot better than being the lonely nerd at the end of the bar, staring at the pretty women from a distance. From 10 p.m. to 1 in the morning, I was the disco duck, just like John Travolta in the movie Saturday Night Fever. I even had a white suit, long-collared shirts, disco boots on my feet, and shells around my neck. Everywhere I went, I walked to the sounds playing in my head of the Bee Gees song, Staying Alive. My hours were ridiculous, and I am sure I looked ridiculous, but it worked. I was failing fast and doing my homework at the communications level of the BI triangle. Failing pays off. In my 3rd and 4th years at Xerox, instead of being at the bottom of the sales pack, I was at the top of the pack. I was also making a lot of money. My failing was paying off. In the 4th year, I was consistently number 1 in sales. Once I made it to the top, I knew it was time to move on. My school days in sales were over. It was time to learn something new. But little did I know that my success in sales was setting me up for the biggest business failure of my life. The 4 business schools. Rich Dad explained to his son and me that there are 4 different types of business schools. They are 1. Traditional business schools. These schools are located at accredited colleges and universities and offer degreed programs, such as an MBA program. 2. Family business schools. Many family businesses, such as my rich dad's business, are great places to get a business education, if you are a member of the family. 3. Corporate business schools. Many businesses offer intern programs for promising young students. After graduation, the company hires and then guides their career development. In many cases, the company will pay the tuition and even allow time off for further study. After receiving a formal education, promising employees are often rotated through different divisions of the company so they can see the entire business and get hands-on experience. 4. Business schools of the street. This is the school that entrepreneurs attend when they leave the security blanket of school, family, or the corporate world. This is the school where your street smarts are developed. Going to school. All 4 schools have their merits, their strengths, and their weaknesses. I am not here to say that one is better than the other. In my life, I have been fortunate enough to attend all 4 in one way or another. A traditional business school. While at Xerox, I did attend a local university night school with the intent of receiving my MBA. That lasted less than a year. It was not for me. The instructors were either employees of the school or employees of a corporation. The students, for the most part, were seeking to become high-paid, well-educated employees, just like their instructors. They were looking to climb the corporate ladder, whereas I wanted to build and own corporate ladders. It was a different culture and a different curriculum, so I left. A family business school. My friendship with Mike allowed me to attend a family business school via Rich Dad's businesses. That was a great school for me, simply because it lasted for years. Rich Dad was not only a successful real-world entrepreneur, but also a great teacher. A corporate business school. Through the Xerox Corporation, I attended one of the best corporate sales training programs in the world. Soon after I was hired in 1974, the company flew me first class from Honolulu to Leesburg, Virginia, to spend 2 weeks at their sales training facility. It was fantastic. After receiving our classroom training, we immediately hit the streets to practice what we learned in the classroom. Our sales managers were great teachers and mentors. They kept us on track with classroom theory applied to real-world challenges found on the street. We studied hard, not only learning sales skills, but also studying our competitors' products and strategies. We had one objective at that time, and that was to beat IBM. They were tough competitors and a worthy opponent, so we knew we had to be up for the challenge. The business school of the streets. But the toughest business school for me was the business school of the streets. Once I left Xerox and hit the streets, I literally hit the streets. The business school of streets was a horrible school, a harsh teacher, and tough on grades. Many times I came face to face with my greatest fears and the depths of personal self-doubt. Yet it was also the best business school for me. It was just what I needed. Instead of A's and B's as grades, street grades are measured in dollars earned or dollars lost. Graduation Day. In 1978, I graduated from the Xerox Corporate Business School and entered the business school of the streets. It was an emotionally tough transition for me. I went from the world of flying first class, having nice offices, a steady paycheck, and everything paid for by the company, to a world where I paid for everything, including paper clips, travel, and other people's salaries and benefits. Before I left the corporate business school, I had no idea how much running a business cost. For 2 years, in order to reduce expenses, my two partners and I did not take salaries.